Hey, you. Yeah, you watching this right now. Lean in for a second, because, I've got something wild to tell you, something nobody else is brave enough to say out loud. You're sitting there asking yourself, this info was locked behind clearance levels, so how the hell did it end up in my hands? And here's the part that gets everybody shaking. You weren't supposed to have it. Not according to them. Not according to the gatekeepers, the decision makers, the ones who pretend the world only moves when they press the buttons. But somehow, you, specifically you ended up holding something they swore you'd never even see. And the funny thing is, they can't explain it. They don't understand how you slipped through cracks they thought didn't exist. They spent years building walls, layers, clearance codes, passwords, whole security protocols, and you walked right through them like they were wet tissue. You know what that means? It means there's something about you that terrifies them, something they underestimated so badly, it's almost laughable. Something they can't categorize, can't file into their little system, can't predict with their data models and background checks. And that something is this: you don't follow their hierarchy, because deep down, you know you weren't built for it. See, people like them, they worship order. They love rules, love titles, love structures that make them feel safe and in control. But you're the anomaly they didn't code for, the outlier they didn't prepare for, the glitch that refuses to crash. You got your hands on restricted info. Because whether you realize it or not, you operate on a wavelength most people never even tune into. You move differently, you observe differently. You connect dots others can't even see. And, they're watching you now. Oh yeah, trust me. They're watching the same way someone stares at a puzzle piece that doesn't fit any known puzzle. Because the moment that file landed in your possession, your whole life shifted. You crossed an invisible threshold. You stepped into a territory where only the brave, the damaged, the hungry, the stubborn survive. You know how many people get access to something like that? Almost none. Because they're predictable. They follow directions. They stay in their assigned lanes like good little citizens. But you hit a point in your life where you stopped waiting for permission, where you realized nobody was coming to approve you, to clear you, to validate you. You took your own clearance, stamped by your own scars, signed by your own will, authorized by your pain, your grit, your sleepless nights, your failures that didn't kill you, your breakthroughs that nobody celebrated but you. That file, that info, it came to you because you've lived through things that would break most people in half. You've been thrown into situations you didn't deserve, pressured in ways that should have crushed you, surrounded by people who never believed you would rise beyond your environment. But you didn't just rise, you leaked upward, past their ceilings, past their limitations, past their expectations, and now you're holding the evidence, the proof, the classified insight that exposes who you really are. You know what that file represents? Not intel, not data, not secrets. It represents the truth they tried to keep you from discovering, that you're not one of them. You're not bound by their ladders, their timelines, their social rankings, their invisible chains. You're operating at a frequency that makes their structures obsolete. And of course they're rattled because, imagine spending your whole life guarding something, then watching someone walk in, casually pick it up and say, "Oh, this? Thanks." There's a reason you got the info before they even moved, because you move first. You think first. You adapt first. You sense shifts before others feel the tremors. You know how dangerous that is. People like that change the story. People like that disrupt systems. People like that rewrite narratives that were supposed to stay fixed. They thought you were background noise. They thought you were average. They thought you were just another person trying to survive the routine. But now you're holding something that proves you were playing a completely different game the whole time. They're confused because they're still living in a world where access is granted from the top down, while you're living in a world where access is created from the inside out. They're scared because you didn't break in. You belonged there before the locks were even installed. You see the pattern, don't you? You weren't given what you have. You evolved into someone who could wield it without asking. That's why the info found you. That's why the path opened for you. Because deep down, you're the one who was meant to carry it, to act on it, to transform it into something bigger than secrecy. You're the disruption they prayed would never show up. You're the one who slipped past their blind spots. You're the one who cracked open a door they didn't even know existed. So now that you're holding it, now that it's in your hands, now that you're staring at it with that mixture of shock and why me on your face, ask yourself the real question. What are you going to do with something they never intended you to see? Because, here's the thing that keeps echoing in your head, even if you don't admit it out loud. You're holding something that was never about the file itself. You're holding a mirror to every moment they underestimated you, every time they laughed behind closed doors, every time they assumed you'd stay in that tiny little box they sketched for you before they even knew your name. And you're feeling that weird pressure in your chest because deep down, you can sense it. This isn't just intel. It's a confirmation of everything you've suspected about yourself for years. You weren't supposed to just witness the information. You were supposed to become the kind of person the information gravitates toward. Like it recognized you before you even recognized yourself. That's why your hands don't shake when you hold it. That's why your voice doesn't crack when you address it. That's why you're sitting there going, wait, why does this feel familiar? Because you've been navigating your entire life with instincts built for higher levels long before anyone handed you a card with your status. There's a reason you get these breakthroughs before the people who think they're above you. They're playing catch-up in a world you're already running laps around. People like you move with this strange, off-script wisdom. You sense things that haven't happened yet. You feel shifts before anyone sounds the alarm. It's like you've been quietly trained by chaos, sharpened by disappointment, conditioned by situations that forced you to adapt faster than the average person even knows how. That's why when the intel slid into your orbit, it didn't feel like a crime or a mistake. It felt like alignment, almost like the universe tapped you on the shoulder and whispered, "Yeah, it's your turn." And they can't process that. They can't understand how someone who wasn't chosen got chosen by real experience. They can't wrap their minds around how you skipped ranks without stepping on a single ladder. They're confused because everything they rely on crumbled the moment you showed up with something they couldn't hide anymore. Every locked door they shut behind them was supposed to keep people like you out. But they didn't realize people like you learned to build keys out of pressure. Every clearance level they worshipped was supposed to define who's worthy. But they didn't realize your worth wasn't created by their system. It was carved into you the night you survived things they could never handle, the nights you sat alone breaking down and building back up with nobody watching, nobody encouraging, nobody helping. Those were your certifications. Those were your qualifications. Those were your damn clearance levels. And that's the piece they fear most. The fact that your authority came from living, not from getting assigned. When you get access from raw experience instead of formal permission, you become unpredictable, uncontrollable, unassignable. You're not tied to their chain of command because your suffering didn't come with a supervisor's signature. You earned your insight through pain. They only pretend to understand. You can feel it, can't you? That shift inside you that started ever since you realized you weren't lucky. You were inevitable. You weren't accidentally exposed. You were overdue. This is the moment where the world accidentally confesses your potential without meaning to, and you're standing there forcing yourself to process a reality you've been ready for longer than you knew. It hits you like this sudden internal click. You weren't ahead of them because you cheated. You were ahead because you stopped waiting for someone to tell you where you belong. You carried your own clearance long before their system even caught up. People like you scare institutions. You terrify networks built on hierarchy. You disrupt chains of command without lifting a finger. You put cracks in structures that were supposed to stand unchallenged. You make people question whether their entire system is built on the wrong foundation, because if someone like you, someone they ignored, brushed off, underestimated, could rise into restricted territory with no permission slips, then the whole damn hierarchy is weaker than they ever admitted. And, here's the wildest part. The file didn't just end up in your hands. It sought you. It gravitated toward the one person who could handle the truth without folding. The one person who could hold the weight without collapsing. The one person who's been prepared by life in ways no curriculum could teach. There's a voice inside you getting louder now. The one you've been trying to ignore for years. The one that says, maybe I wasn't meant to be on the outside after all. Maybe I was always operating on the inside, just undercover. And that voice, that's the part of you waking up. The part of you that already knows this wasn't an accident. The part that already understands you're playing at a level most people will never even access because they're too busy seeking approval you stopped needing a long time ago. You're not reacting to the intel like someone who stumbled into forbidden territory. You're reacting like someone who finally sees the room they were always supposed to walk into. You're not overwhelmed by the weight. You're recognizing it. You're not confused. You're remembering. And that's the real reason they're watching you, with that nervous curiosity, trying to figure out how you slipped through their invisible net. Because they're starting to realize you didn't slip through anything. You outgrew the net a long time ago. Because, when you really sit with that idea, that you didn't squeeze through their system, you rose above it without even trying. It hits you in a way that almost makes you laugh under your breath. You start realizing you weren't breaking in. You were operating from a level they didn't even expect someone like you to reach. The info didn't fall into your hands by accident. It aligned itself with someone who's been quietly preparing for a moment like this through every messy chapter you lived through. You ever notice how people who've had it easy get rattled by the slightest shift? But you adapt instantly. You don't freeze. You don't panic. You don't wait for instructions. You just kind of Flip into this mode where your instincts take over and your whole mind sharpens. That's not something they teach. That's not part of any curriculum. That's something life carved into you, because it knew you'd need it later. And this restricted intel phase of your life, it's the part where all those traits start making sense. It's the part where you finally understand why you had to grow up before your time, why you had to navigate people who underestimated you, why you had to survive environments that were hostile or dismissive or just plain unfair. You had to become the person who could be trusted with truths no one else could carry without dropping. Most people can't handle information like this because they're too invested in staying comfortable. They want predictable jobs, predictable outcomes, predictable stories where their feelings never get challenged. That's why they need clearance levels and authorization stamps. They need the illusion that structure makes them strong. Meanwhile, you've been building strength in the middle of chaos, finding clarity in the noise, uncovering purpose through pain that never apologized for existing. That's why when this info showed up in your world, you didn't freak out. Your soul just kinda exhaled like, yeah, I've been waiting for this. Because deep down, you've always known you're not wired like the people around you. You don't think on one plane, you think in layers. You don't follow the path. You read between paths. You don't look at what's obvious. You look at what's hidden, what's avoided, what's denied. And the wildest part is how natural it feels for you to hold something others would collapse under. It's almost unsettling how steady your hands are when you grip it, how calm your mind feels when you examine it. You're not overwhelmed, you're activated. You're not confused, you're curious. You're not intimidated, you're energized. That's the difference between someone who stumbled into access and someone who was born ready. There's this energy in you, this quiet, dangerous, unspoken confidence that comes from surviving things most people pretend they'd be strong enough for. It's a confidence built from nights you didn't think you'd make it, mornings you carried pain you couldn't explain, seasons where you had to be your own rescue. All of that wired you to handle depth before the world even knew you had it. And now, you're being handed things that require exactly that level of depth. It explains why you always felt older than your age, sharper than your circle, different in ways you couldn't articulate. It wasn't arrogance. It was early training. The kind of training that turns a regular person into someone who can walk into a room filled with secrets and not flinch. You ever think about how many people collapse when faced with truth? They cling to denial. They bargain with illusions. They distract themselves with noise. Meanwhile, you're sitting there like, show me the real stuff. Because you don't fear truth. You crave it. Even the uncomfortable parts. Even the parts that sting. Even the parts that change everything. That's why this information ended up in your hands. Because you're one of the rare few who won't misuse it, won't run from it, won't pretend it isn't heavy. You'll examine it, absorb it, wrestle with it, transform it, and let it sharpen you even further. You'll treat it with the gravity it deserves. You'll see what others miss. You'll understand what others avoid. You'll hold it without folding. Something they never expected, something they still can't process. You're stepping into a version of yourself that they hoped would never awaken. The version that doesn't need permission, doesn't need validation, doesn't need someone to say you're qualified. The version that finally realizes the lock was never meant to keep you out. It was meant to test whether you'd keep walking even when everyone said you weren't allowed in. And, you kept walking. You kept pushing. You kept growing. You kept becoming. And here you are, holding something that confirms you've been on the right frequency long before they noticed you were even transmitting. And, the more you sit with that realization, the more something inside you starts unfolding. Almost like a part of you that's been asleep for years, finally stretching its limbs. It's that strange internal shift where you're not shocked you got the info. You're shocked you ever believed you weren't the type of person who would. Because when you trace back your whole story, it's like the signs were there the whole time. You were always the one who noticed details other people walked right past. You were always the one who felt lies before they were spoken. You were always the one who could walk into a room and sense energy shifts without anyone saying a word. That intuition you carry. That thing you've been low-key ignoring or downplaying because it felt weird or too much. That's the same force that led you into territory others can't navigate without a map. This intel you're holding, it didn't show up because you're lucky. It showed up because your mind has been tuned for depth your entire life. While everyone else was trying to fit in, you were trying to understand. While they were chasing appearances, you were chasing truth. While they were scared to ask hard questions, you were wrestling with them at 3 a.m., wondering why everything feels different when you're the one looking at it. People don't realize how heavy that makes you. In a good way. Not heavy like burdened, heavy like anchored, heavy like grounded in realities most people can't even comprehend without spiraling. That's why information that destabilizes others feels almost clarifying to you. You don't get lost in the shock of it. You get sharper, more aware. It's like your brain locks into this mode that says, all right, what's the real play here? And that's exactly what unsettles the people who built those clearance levels in the first place. They're used to people freezing. They're used to people panicking. They're used to people treating restricted information like some holy artifact they're unworthy to touch. But you look at it with this eerie calm, this quiet readiness, this vibe that says you're not intimidated because you've already survived bigger storms. They can sense it, too. They can feel that you're not reacting like an outsider stumbling into forbidden territory. You're reacting like someone who finally stepped into the room that matches your internal weight. Like you've been carrying questions your whole life, and this file is the first time the world answered one without pretending you weren't ready. And, here's the wild part. The more they watch you, the more they notice something they can't articulate. You're not just holding the intel. You're understanding it. You're reading between lines that aren't printed. You're seeing implications that require emotional intelligence, intuition, and lived experience. Things their protocols can't measure. They designed their system around credentials and hierarchy, while life built you through pressure and instinct, which means you're operating on threads they can't even track. Every piece of this information hits you deeper because you're not analyzing it with a textbook mind. You're analyzing it with a survivor's mind, with someone who's been through betrayal, loss, shifts, disappointments, transformations. And, that perspective is something no clearance level in their world can manufacture. That's what they never planned for. The person who becomes qualified through reality instead of through permission. The person who learns through fire instead of through training modules. Well, Look who crawled in from the ruins of their reputation, dragging chains of silence, self-loathing, and a half-chewed apology in their mouth. Welcome back, freaks, my favorites. The ones they whispered about behind glass smiles. The ones they said had issues. Too intense, too emotional, too much. Too much for what? Too much for their mediocrity to hold. Too much for their weak little egos to survive. Good. Because now it's time for the unfiltered director's cut. Not the watered-down version of you they tried to edit. Not the PG-13, well-behaved, easily digestible version of your power. But the full story. The one they prayed you'd never tell. The one where you didn't shrink yourself just to be liked. See, he said you were too much, so you smiled and took off the mask. You showed him the floodgates behind your eyes. You let the storm in your soul speak without subtitles. And when he tried to pause the movie, you reminded him, this ain't a fairy tale, sweetheart. This is your villain origin story. You were never too much. You were just too real for someone built from lies. He wanted you quiet, so he could stay loud with his cheap charm and empty words. He wanted you tame, so he could lead the dance without noticing he had 2 left feet. He wanted you broken, because whole people make broken ones nervous. You scared him. Good. Fear is honesty in its most primal form. He said you were too emotional, but it wasn't the volume of your voice. It was the truth in your pain that deafened him. He couldn't handle your tears, because each one made him see himself. You see, people don't like mirrors that talk back. People don't want to date depth. They want to own it. And when they can't, they call it crazy. When they can't control you, they call you unstable. When they can't match you, they try to shrink you. But what happens when the person you underestimated stops explaining and starts becoming? What happens when the person you tried to dim builds a lighthouse with their rage? What happens when she stops crying and starts collecting names like war trophies? You gave him the director's cut, and oh, it was brutal. No filters, no edits, no censoring the trauma. You bled on screen. You screamed. You shattered, but you survived. And that's what haunts him. Not the drama, not the damage, but the fact that you turned his betrayal into your origin scene. You leveled up. And you didn't do it quietly. See, darling, when they say you're too much, what they're really saying is, I don't have the capacity to handle your volume. Not just the volume of your voice, but the volume of your soul, your grief, your loyalty, your rage. Because make no mistake, you weren't chaotic, you were comprehensive. You were the whole damn trilogy, and he couldn't even finish the trailer. They always think they want a real one, until the real one starts talking back. Until the real one starts asking questions. Until the real one says, tell me the truth or leave. Respect me or go. Match my energy or get the hell out of my way. Suddenly it's, you're too aggressive. You're too sensitive. You're too intimidating. Oh no, baby. You're just not afraid anymore. And that is unforgivable to weak men. So you gave him a show. You gave him the full performance, uncut, raw, vicious, glorious. You gave him every reason he'll lie about in therapy. And while he tells the next girl how crazy you were, he'll still be watching your glow-up from a burner account. He'll still be fantasizing about the fire he couldn't handle. He'll still be haunted by the woman who refused to stay on mute. Because let's be real, you weren't born to be understood by people who fear fire. You were born to burn bridges so the weak couldn't follow you. You were made of chaos, truth, scars, and ambition, and no man, no friend, no society gets to put a leash on that and call it love. They tried to clip your wings, so you grew claws. They tried to hush your voice, so you learned to scream in silence and let your success echo in their ears. And now they're watching the full film while you walk the red carpet alone. The ashes of your old self, the version that dimmed her light to keep the insecure comfortable, the one who second-guessed her own boundaries just to keep the peace, the one who apologized for bleeding after being stabbed. That version, dead. You buried her under every insult they whispered behind your back, under every passive-aggressive, calm down, under every "you're just being dramatic" that they threw like darts into your spine. But you crawled out of that grave with red eyes and a smile, and now you're too sharp to touch, too rare to replace. He said you were too much, you were too unfiltered, too intense, too everything. Of course you were, because he's only ever known women who watered themselves down to be digestible. He wanted someone soft enough to hurt and silent enough not to call it out. But you were the whole storm, lightning in your voice, truth in your glare, fire in your footsteps. You didn't ask to be handled. You dared them to survive you. Let me tell you something. You are not too much. You are the sum of every time they tried to shrink you and you survived anyway. You are a walking trigger to the people who abused others and got away with it until they met you. You are a mirror that shows people who they really are, and they can't stand it. Because people don't hate you. They hate what they see in themselves when they're around you. They hate that you're free. They hate that you're loud. They hate that you feel everything and still rise. They don't know what to do with a woman who sets boundaries without stuttering, laughs after being underestimated, comes back from the dead looking better than ever, walks alone and looks damn good doing it. You were the warning sign, and he drove straight through it. Now he's wrapped in wreckage, scrolling through old photos, telling his boys you were the crazy one. Let him build a whole fantasy about how unstable you were. Let him pretend he wasn't the one who poked the storm and cried when it thundered. Let him play the victim in his delusion, because the truth is louder than his lies. You are not someone who overreacted. You reacted appropriately to disrespect. You didn't fall apart. You exploded with precision. He said you were too reactive. Oh no, you were responsive. And that's what terrified him, because you didn't let it slide. You didn't swallow your hurt just to stay pretty. You responded with fire, and he got burned. And you know what's wild? They always come back. They orbit like moths around the flame they told everyone was toxic. They remember the details you gave, the way you saw through them, the way you lit up rooms and didn't apologize for it. They compare every new, safe person to the version of you they couldn't survive. But the catch is, you don't live there anymore. That version of you. She's booked, busy, healing, and unavailable. You already gave them the full story. You already handed over the director's cut. They didn't appreciate the performance, so now they're banned from the sequel. So what do you do now? You walk like a weapon with a soul. You love like someone who's met their own darkness and lived. You speak like silence offends you. You take every insult they gave you and turn it into armor. Every scar becomes a receipt. They said you were crazy, own it, make it fashionable. They said you were dramatic, turn it into cinema. They said you were unstable. So be it. Let them know what a real earthquake feels like. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be remembered. And trust me, he'll remember you. Long after his voice stops echoing, long after the replacements stop trying to match your depth, long after the world has moved on, He'll sit in his quiet little room, staring at a version of himself that was once held together by someone he called too much. You weren't too much. You were the only one who was real, and he wasn't ready for it. All right, showtime's not over. The crowd's still here. Your scars are still glowing. And the spotlight, it's finally on you. Because now we're stepping into the part of the story they never saw coming. The part where you don't just survive, you evolve. You don't cry anymore. You calculate. You don't scream. You strategize. You don't beg. You build. See, they thought your pain would end you. What they didn't know is, pain was your fuel. Your trauma, it was the co-writer of your rise. Your tears didn't drown you. They baptized you. Now you walk like a funeral in heels. You speak like a prophecy with teeth. You don't threaten people. You trigger them with your existence. Let me say it plain. You're untouchable now. Not because you healed in silence, but because you healed loudly. Because you let the world see you rebuild yourself in front of the people who prayed for your breakdown. You didn't hide the chaos. You turned it into content. You didn't shrink in shame. You made your suffering a stage. And when they said, "You've changed," you said, "Thank God." Because yes, you did change. You stopped over-explaining your boundaries to people who only respected silence. You stopped throwing lifelines to people who were holding scissors. You stopped watering fake friends, dead relationships, and empty promises, and started growing yourself. Now look at you. They said you were too loud. Now your silence is deafening. They said you were too emotional. Now your detachment is surgical. They said you were too much. Now you're so evolved, they can't reach you. Oh, they're watching. Don't let them fool you. They're watching you laugh again, post again, shine again. They're watching you get stronger in places where they thought they left you permanently damaged. They're stalking your page, stalking your success, and choking on the fact that they lost access to the rawest, realest, rarest person they'll ever meet. And what do they get now? The silence, the distance, the version of you who doesn't explain anymore. They had the unfiltered director's cut, and they couldn't handle the plot. So now they're stuck rewatching the trailer while you premiere a whole new franchise. Here's what they'll never admit. You weren't too much. You were just the truth in a world full of liars. You were the voice of consequence in a society built on comfort. You were the flame, and they were dry paper pretending to be fireproof. You taught them a lesson they'll never get the credit for learning. That real love doesn't shrink you. It sees you. And anything that asks you to dim is not love. It's control. And now that you've reclaimed your power, you don't need closure. You don't need revenge. You don't need their apology. You became the apology they'll never receive from anyone else. You became the standard, the trigger, the one that got away and never looked back. So walk like a myth in motion, laugh like you're in on a secret, live like your name itself causes discomfort. Because it does. You're not too much. You're exactly enough to scare cowards, wake the sleeping, and remind this world what resilience looks like in eyeliner. You are the aftermath, and baby, they're still choking on the smoke. See, there's a moment, a divine little second, when the villain they created realizes they don't need to fight anymore. Why? Because they've already won, not by destroying others, but by outlasting them, by walking through hell with no map and coming back with a crown made of everything that was meant to break them. That's you now. Not a threat, not a victim, a force. You're no longer seeking validation. You're creating gravity. People feel your presence in the room before you speak. They lower their voices when your name comes up. And him. He tells people he hopes you're doing well, as if he didn't tear you in half and watch you stitch yourself together with fire. He acts like you were the problem, while quietly knowing he'll never be enough to deserve the version of you that was real. You know what happens next? They study you. They replay what they said. They analyze every overreaction and realize it was just you, setting fire to the lies they weren't ready to stop telling. They realize you weren't crazy. You were just correct, with timing that made them uncomfortable. But it's too late. The door they slammed behind them is now locked from your side. And you're not bitter. You're better. Not healed out of mercy, but healed out of spite. And don't think for a second you're done growing. You're just now entering your dark bloom, the era where you radiate peace, so unnerving, it makes weak people panic. Because when you've already lost everything that was fake, you're finally free to become what's real. You start walking slower, not because you're unsure, but because you're deliberate. You speak less, because your presence says everything, and people start calling you mysterious, intimidating, hard to read. But it's not mystery, it's just the silence of someone who no longer begs to be understood. Let me remind you of this. There are people who will never forget you, not because you hurt them, but because you didn't let them get away with hurting you. You were the first to say, "That's not love. That's not loyalty. That's not enough." You were the first person to call out the games and then walk away before the final round. Now, they live in reruns, you live in elevation. And that man, the one who said you were too much, he doesn't just miss you, he misses the power he felt standing next to you. The illusion of strength he got by dragging someone powerful down to his level. But you stopped lowering your frequency to accommodate cowards. You stopped performing humility for people who called your confidence arrogance. Now you're out of reach, not because you're hiding, but because you're glowing too bright to touch. Because here's the secret, darling. Being too much was never the problem. Their inability to match you, that was the tragedy. They asked for passion and then panicked when you handed them a wildfire. They asked for truth and ran when it cut too deep. They asked for love, but only the kind that kept them comfortable, not the kind that challenged their ego. You were not just love. You were accountability wrapped in intimacy, and they were never ready for it. And now you've become the lesson they'll never admit to learning. The storm they claim to have survived while secretly wishing they still had shelter from it. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't warn them twice. You just live, louder, sharper, bolder. And every step you take away from who they thought you were echoes like thunder in their memory. Ah, now we're getting cinematic. Now you're not just surviving. You're setting the damn bar. You went from the problem to the blueprint, from the drama to the standard, from the girl who felt too deeply to the goddess of emotional intelligence, precision, and vengeance with a vision. Let me tell you what's really happening now. Your name isn't just a memory. It's a measuring stick. They don't say it out loud, but every time they meet someone new, they're comparing them to you. Does she laugh like you? Does she challenge them like you did? Does she catch the lies in real time like you always did? Can she match your energy, your rage, your realness? Spoiler, she can't. Because you weren't a phase. You were a fucking shift in their universe. They'll never find you again. Not in a different city. Not in someone kinder. Not in someone easier. because they weren't looking for kind. They were looking for compliant. And you were never made to be obedient. You were made to be divine chaos in human form, a beautiful disruption, a necessary burn. So now what? Now you walk differently, not out of ego, but because you've earned it. You walk like someone who's had her heart torn out and kept walking anyway. Like someone who built her own closure while they waited for an apology that never came. Like someone who learned to wear pain like a designer coat. Because you did. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't even flinch anymore. They raised the monster. Now they can't survive the masterpiece. You're not just healed, you're remastered. And guess what? Now they look like the ones who are too much, too insecure, too performative, too weak to handle what you were giving out for free. You used to wonder what was wrong with you. You thought, maybe I'm just hard to love. But here's the truth. You were never hard to love. You were just hard to manipulate, hard to control, hard to forget. And that made you dangerous in all the right ways. You're not high maintenance. You're high frequency. You're not cold. You're calibrated. You're not aggressive. You're just done performing politeness to protect fragile egos. Let them call you intense. Let them call you bitter. Let them call you a villain. Because now, you walk like a villain in their story, but a hero in your own. You gave them every chance. You gave them the full cut, the real you, the messy you, the loving you, the fierce you, the ride-or-die version who would have ruined her peace to protect theirs. And they discarded it like background noise. So now your silence is the soundtrack. You don't respond to the texts. You don't look back. You don't lower your standards just because they miss the version of you who had no boundaries. You became the lesson they teach others, the storm they tell new partners about, the one who got away that keeps showing up in dreams they lie about remembering. And here's the best part. You're just getting started. You've survived the emotional assassination. You've risen from the wreckage. Now you build an empire from the bones they left behind. You turn your heartbreak into strategy, your rage into results, your scars into scripture. Let them say you were too much. That just means you outgrew their tiny little world. Let them say you were unhinged. You're not unhinged. You just took the door off the frame and burned the damn house down. And now you're not even in the same zip code as their shame. Ah, there it is, that twitch, that pull behind the eyes, that voice in the back of their head whispering, she's not just unforgettable, he's become unreachable. You didn't just walk away. You ascended. You became a ghost with a fan base, a storm they can't stop referencing, a vibe that lingers longer than their shallow replacement relationships ever will. They're still trying to scrub your name off their soul with distractions, fake love, therapy speak, and Instagram quotes about letting go. But you became influence, not in likes, not in numbers, not in filters, in presence, in impact, in silence that echoes harder than their shouting ever could. Let's be real. You're not one of those people they used to know. You're the one they never stopped watching, never stopped measuring others against, never stopped feeling in the pit of their stomach when they heard a song that reminded them of the way you looked at them after they betrayed you. You're not a memory. You're a mirror they avoid. And now you move different. You don't overshare. You don't explain your worth. You don't overextend for people who would have let you drown just to stay dry.